As I'm packing for the National, getting ready to leave, I'm in such a great mood. And what's the news that I see? Jerome Powell and the Fed have opted to move up 75 basis points up to 2.25, 2.5%. What does it mean? Let's talk through it. Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are we doing? It is another day. It is another card video. I'm actually driving right now. I am videoing this the day before because I don't think it's a great idea for me to try to do something on the road and then try to upload it while I'm driving. Probably not a good idea. It's going to be a long day tomorrow. Let's just say that. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, like if you like what you hear, and don't forget to connect with me on IG. I know I'm too old for IG, but for some reason, old guys like me that are into cards, they like to put cards on their IG. It's a good way to connect. It's a community for sports card people as well as 20-year-olds, but whatever. Connect with me there, and then also I'm on Twitter, the Sports Card Dad. Well, we saw here recently, inflation has not been dropping, even though the Fed has been raising the rate over the last couple of months. Inflation, not touched by it. Frankly, it's actually going in the other direction. So it's just not great right now. It's not slowing down. And so the Fed is going to try to slow it down again. Today, they raised the Fed interest rate by 0.75, 75 basis points. It's up now to 2.25 to 2.5. What sort of ripple effect does this have? I know a lot of people, they hear this news and they're like, who cares? How does this affect me? Well, the way that it affects you is it gets more expensive to borrow money. And the big one is mortgages. Mortgage rates are going to start going up. So if you're a person that's been looking to buy a house, it's only really getting more expensive to take out a mortgage for a house. Now, the thing that's been kind of wild is we've had kind of the supply issue with housing to where housing prices have remained steady, even with those rate hikes, even with mortgage rates going from 2.5, 3%, 4% up to 5, 5.5, 6%. And we're probably looking at north of 6% now, I would guess, now with this rate. But the demand has outweighed the supply. And so we will have to see, is this finally kind of the mark where housing prices start to come down? Or is there still going to be a shortage to where it doesn't really affect prices that much? But the reality is this is huge. I mean, if you go from, 3% mortgage rate to 6% mortgage rate, you check the payments, the monthly payments, when you add in all the stuff, it's dramatically different. And then when that 6% goes to 7, 7.5%, maybe 8% for that rate, for that 30-year fixed, that's a dramatic difference in price. You can afford a lot less house. Now, the issue is that there's not a lot of inventory for the lower end houses. People are really having to stretch if they want to buy a house right now. So is this the final nail in what's going to bring down housing prices? We will have to see. It's going to be interesting. I'm heading to the National. There's so much excitement about the National. I've already watched some of these kind of the early access YouTube videos. It looks awesome. Everybody's excited. I'm seeing everybody driving in like all fired up. And I am really eager to see, does this have any sort of effect yet on pricing? It would be very interesting if the National was 3 months later, 3 months from now, just to see where we are. Because typically what happens with this stuff is interest rates get pushed up, asset prices as a whole, not just sports cards or anything, but asset prices move down. That's kind of the balance. That's the inverse effect that all this has. It's the yin and the yang, and we haven't quite seen that yet. A lot of people will say like, yeah, but card prices have gone down quite a bit. And you're right, they have gone down for lower to mid-end. We are starting to see some of the higher end stuff come down. And like I've always said, the mega high-end stuff, the 52 Manals, the Jordan PMGs, a lot of the higher stuff will continue to set new records because it's in that like 0.001% of collectibles. But that's not the majority of the stuff, and that's what the majority of people are not buying. But you know what? On the other hand, it could have very little effect on cards. It could be that, look, people look at this as a fun outlet. There's enough new people coming in. Yes, of course, you have people that have left over the last couple of years or whatever. But I would argue that there's also been a lot of new people that have come in as well. So, that whole balancing act of what's going on. The National is going to be a busy show. I'm excited to kind of see what it looks like as far as the feel of it compared to Chicago. But the reality, too, I have to keep that in check because the actual actual convention center for Atlantic City is a much larger space than Chicago. Chicago is really kind of it's not a small area. I'm not going to say that it's small. It's large, but everything is all there centered around the show. Everything is right there. There's 5 hotels that are right next to the convention center. The convention center is big, but they really they have it packed in. Whereas Atlantic City, from what I understand about this venue, it's much larger, wider. So it's going to give the impression, just looking around, that it's not as busy probably as Chicago. Do I think it's going to be as busy as Chicago regardless? No, I don't. I think last year was kind of an anomaly. You had people coming out. They hadn't been out in 2 years. They wanted a lot of, people wanted to meet each other for the first time. They hadn't been to a national couple years. So I think that was somewhat of an anomaly. It was the second highest attended show outside of Anaheim, 1991. So do I think there's going to be less people at this show? Yeah, I do, but I don't think it's going to be empty. I think it's going to be really, really busy. And I guess that is really kind of the question here is, do these economic type things, these macroeconomic stuff, does it take hold on cards, or have we kind of already been buried enough? Kind of like, have we already hit a lot of the bottoms for some of these cards? Now, of course, this is a moving target. Each card has its own market, has its own market for a particular grade. It is extremely nuanced. So the whole idea of the market is moving this way or that way, it's extremely tough to tell. And it has been moving downward for quite some time. So it's kind of like that whole, are we hitting the bottom? Have we already hit the bottom? Are we almost to the bottom? Or are we not even close to the bottom? These are all questions that everybody's trying to answer. Look, the Fed is showing no signs of slowing down on this. I just don't think that this is going to be the last rate hike. There's a few quotes from Jerome Powell here recently where they are committed to returning inflation to its 2% objective. They have continuously said this. They have not come off of this statement. They are committed to getting it down to 2%. And who knows, maybe this rate hike does it and we're all good. It's a soft landing thing. Maybe it doesn't. That's the thing that we're going to have to watch. The labor market, he says, is extremely tight and inflation is much too high. Powell said another unusually large rate hike increase might not be out of the realm of possibility in the Fed's next meeting in September, depending on inflation data. So they're watching this closely. They might go big again, when it comes down to September timeframe. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. Housing market and employment levels. Those are the two things that I'm really watching. And then naturally, we're going to have a lot of excitement at the National regardless. It's not like there's not going to be any transactions. There's going to be tons of transactions. It's a massive card show. But this is kind of the Energizer bunny that kind of gets things going after the summer. There's usually always kind of card lulls as far as pricing goes in the summer. And now we're coming out of it. Now we got the National. Now we've got football season. We got basketball season again in a couple of months. Stuff starts to get going. So this is going to be critical. I don't think the National is going to be that affected as far as pricing goes. I don't think this announcement is going to move down a lot of card prices. I think it's just going to be the way that it was always intended to be. I don't think the economic data is going to change that. What I want to see, though, is post-National. What does it look like 30 days after, 60 days after, 90 days after, especially when we're heating up with football season, basketball season? These are typically great times for sports cards. So I want to see what it looks like at that point. What did you guys think of this news? I don't think that many were surprised that once the inflation data came in, that they were going to raise interest rates. It was pretty much a foregone conclusion. But let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think that this will continue on? Do you think we're actually at a good point where maybe they'll level off, in September, October, maybe just pause on the increases and just let it ride a little bit and see what happens? Or will they come back more aggressive? What do you think about the overall economy for the rest of the year as we head into 2023? Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.